Erev Tov, everyone, and let me adjust this microphone here. Keeps hitting something. Anyway, okay, it is, what is it? It is one day of the week, Wednesday. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be the Torah study with Rabbi Aryel and Rabbi Ancel. Without further ado, we'll bring on Rabbi Ancel here. Rabbi Ancel, are you there?
Erev Tov, everybody,
there he is.
and welcome.
Okay. Thought I lost you there for a minute.
I'm here.
Okay, good. So this week's Parshah is Vayeira, and that is beginning at, in the Sefer Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter 18, verse 1. So let me go ahead and put that on the screen. And as always, Rabbi Ancel will read through the whole portion first, and then we'll take our break, and then we will go into what my little midrash has to say about the Parshah. So take it away, Rabbi Ancel.
And the Lord appeared unto him by the terebinths of Mamre, as he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood over him against him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed down to the earth, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let now a little water be fetched, and wash your feet, and recline yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and stay ye for your heart, and after that ye shall pass on, for as much as ye are to come to your servant. And they said, My Lord, see, by clicking, I'm going, where am I?
Yeah, on verse 5.
Okay. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and stay ye your heart, and after ye shall pass on, for as much as ye are come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened unto the tent, unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto the servants, and he has to dress it. And he took curd and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, as he stood by them under the tree. And they did eat. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee when the season cometh round, and lo, Sarah thy wife will have a son. And Sarah heard in the tent door which was behind them. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, and were stricken in age, and he has ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have the pleasure, my Lord, of being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of Sarai bear a child who am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the set time I will return unto thee, when the season cometh round, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. And the man rose up from thence and looked out towards Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that which I am doing, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, to the end that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, Verily thy cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and verily their sin is exceeding grievous. I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is to come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the man turned from the hence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there are 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou indeed sweep away and not forgive the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, that so the righteous shall be as the wicked, that be far from thee shall not judge after the earth do justly. And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will forgive all the place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, who am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city that lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 40 and 5. And he spoke unto him yet again. He said, Peradventure there shall be 40 found. And he said, I will not do it for the 40's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found. And he said, I will not destroy if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy for the 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let now the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but once, this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found. And he said, I will not destroy if for the 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, and as soon as he left off speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. And the 2 angels came to Sodom at even, and Lot sat at the gate of Sodom. And Lot saw them and rose up and to meet them, and he fell down on his face to the earth. And he said, Behold now, my Lord, turn aside, I pray you. Into your servant's house I tarry all night and wash your feet. And ye shall rise up early and go in your way. And they said, Nay, but we will abide by the broad place all night. And he urged them to greatly, and they turned unto him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both young and old, and all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men that came in to thee this night? Bring them unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out unto them and to the door, and shut the door after him. And he said, I pray you, my brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters that have not known men. Let me, I pray you, bring them unto you, and do yet to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for as much as they come under the shadow of my roof. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door.
Okay, you
And the
kind of
men said
skipped a
unto
couple
Lot,
there.
I'm sorry?
You kind of skipped a couple there. You missed 9. 9 and 10.
Oh, okay, sorry. And they said, Stand back. And they said, This one fellow came into sojourn, and he needs to play the judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and drew near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and brought Lot into the house. to them, and the door they shut. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great. So they wearied themselves to find the door. And the man said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of the place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxed great before the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke unto his son-in-law, who married his daughter, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed unto his son-in-law as one that jested. And when the morning arose, then the angel hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy daughters that are here, lest thou be swept away in the iniquity of the city. But he lingered, and then the man laid upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he had said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither thou in all thy plain escape to the mountain, lest thou be swept away. And Lot said unto them, Oh no, oh, not so, my Lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape the mountain, lest the evil overtake me, and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is little one. Oh, let me escape thither, and it is not a little one, and my soul shall live. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, and I will not overthrow the city of which thou hast spoken. Hast thou escaped thither? For I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city shall be Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth, and when Lot came unto Zoar, then the Lord caused the rain upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities in all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked out towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and towards all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the land went up as smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the city of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. When he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up to Zoar, and dwelt in the mountains, and his two daughters with him. For he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine at night. And the firstborn went in and lay with their father, and he knew not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesterday night with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he knew not when he lay down, nor when he arose. Thus we both of the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn son was called Moab, the same as the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger also bore a son, and she called him Ben-Ami, the same as his father of his children of Ammon unto this day. And Abraham sojourned from thence toward the land of the south, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, And he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream of the night and said unto him, Behold, thou shalt die because of the woman with whom thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. Now that Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay even a righteous nation? Said he not himself unto me, She is my sister, and she is even herself said, He is my brother, and in simplicity of my heart and the innocency of my hands shall I done this. And God said unto him in the dream, Yea, I know that in the simplicity of thy heart thou hast done this, and I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if you restore her not, know that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. And Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us, and wherein I have sinned against thee? And thou hast brought on me and my kingdom a great sin. Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they shall slay me for my wife's sake. And moreover, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And so she became my wife. And it came to pass when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness for which thou shalt show unto me. And every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen, and men servants and women servants, and gave it to Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee, dwell where it pleases thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given my brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, it is for thee a covering of thy eyes, thou of thy eyes, all that with thee, and before all men thou art right. And Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bore children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And the Lord remembered Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called his name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bore to him, he called him Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God had made laughter for me. Every one that had heard it will laugh on account of me. And he said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should give children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew, and he was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast of the day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne unto Abraham, and making sport. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out thy bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir to my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight on account of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman in all that Sarah said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For in Isaac shall thy seed be called to thee, and also the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation because of thy seed. And Abraham arose up early in the morning and took bread and bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and he sent her away. And she departed and stayed in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the bottle was spent, and she cast the child unto one of the shrubs. And she went and she sat down over against him in good way off, as it were a bowshot. For she said, let me not look upon the death of a child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard her voice of the lad, and an angel of God called to Hagar out of the heaven. And he said unto her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard thy voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him fast by thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave it to the lad to drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, and he became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took upon his wife on the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at the time that Abimelech and Phicol, the captain of the host, spoke unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well of water which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I know not who had done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard of it, but today. And Abraham took the sheep and oxen and gave it to Abimelech. And they too made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? He said, verily, these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take out of my hand, that they may witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore that place was called Beersheba, because there they swore, both of them. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech rose up and Phicol, the captain of his host, and they returned unto the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted the tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and called there the name of the Lord, an everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days. And it came to pass after these things that God did prove Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. And he said, take now thy son, thy only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he cleaved wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and he went unto the place which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto the young men, abide ye here with this ass, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship and come back unto you. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. He took his hand, the fire, and the knife, and they both went together. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father, and he said, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. And he said, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both both of them together, and they came upon the place which God had told them of. And Abraham built an altar there, and he laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him upon the altar, upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called upon him out of the heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham, he said, here I am. And he said, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou art God's fearing man, seeing thou hast not withhold thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him there was a ram caught in the thicket of his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him upon the burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Adonai Jireh, and it is said this day, in the mount where the Lord is seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham a second time out of the heaven, and said, by myself I have sworn, said the Lord, because thou hast done this thing, and thou hast not beheld thy son, thy only son, that in the blessing I will bless thee, with multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of the enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast hearkened in my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, behold, Milcah, she also had borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Uz his first son, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These eight did Milcah bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And this concubine, whose name was Reumah, she also bore Teba, and Teba, Gam, and Tahash, and Makkah.
And there it is. There it is, the Parshah Vayeira. Okay.
Interesting. It's
Okay, and in the chat room we have Marshall, we have Adrian, and we have Simcha, Ronald, and Yehuda. Good to have you all here this evening. Let me go ahead and take this down. The people in the chat room have no idea what you and I went through so that we could do tonight's show, do they?
It's my fault.
No, it's not.
Not being computer savvy. Oh my God.
We spent some time working together, showing each other's screens and stuff, so that we could get, this, so that we could actually get it smoother without interruptions. Actually, I think it came off very well tonight. Even the sound is much better on your computer. So,
correct, and you know what? I'm happy for the people in the chat room, whoever is watching, because that delay kind of broke up the Parsha. So this just went straight.
Yeah, this
Thanks
is
to Aryel.
So much better, and
And it's bigger print than I can see.
Yeah.
Without the copy, I can see better.
So we are going to take our break now. I'm going to turn you down here for a moment. We're going to go ahead and take our break, and when we come back, we'll find out what my little midrash has to say about this parsha. So please, everyone, stay tuned. We will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get our ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
There we go, and we are back. Thanks for everybody for sticking around. Hang on just a moment. We'll bring Rabbi Ancel back in, and you're back on with us, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Down here.
So, again, we're going back to my favorite. My little midrash says, I'll put that so you can actually see it. I cannot recommend this highly enough, especially if you have children. It's just amazing. As I said, I bought it for my grandchildren, but I may have to buy another set because I like it so much. It's a great teaching tool. Okay, so let's get in and let's see what my little midrash has to say about Parshah Vayeira. Okay, so Hashem appears to Abraham. Hang on, just a minute. Forgot this. Gotta have that. There we go. Okay. So Hashem appears to Abraham and sends him 3 angels. Do you know what Abraham would do every day at dinner time? Abraham would sit down at the entrance of his tent and wait there. Abraham would think, if only a traveler would pass by, I want to invite him in for a meal. Now, we got to remember that at this point, Abraham has just circumcised himself. Right? He is at the point of the time where he's in the greatest amount of pain and he's running out to serve people. And it just tells you about this man. So Abraham's greatest pleasure in life was to give a meal to someone hungry. He was kind to everyone. When his guests had finished eating, Abraham would teach them to thank Hashem, and he would tell them about Hashem, who created the world and who looks after it all the time. Now, it was the 3rd day after Abraham's Brit Milah that he did himself. That's a man. That is a man, huh? He was weak, sick, and in pain. Nevertheless, before mealtime, he sat down in front of his tent as usual. It was an extremely hot day, so the roads were empty. Abraham was disappointed. Actually, it says, it may actually go into this, but it says that God had actually made it an extremely hot day so that Abraham would not be bothered by travelers on that day when he was in his greatest amount of pain. And then when he found Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent, he said, well, got to send him somebody. The old man will just sit there. It was an extremely hot day and the roads were empty. Abraham was disappointed. It seems I won't be able to feed anyone today, he thought sadly. Hashem saw how unhappy Abraham was, and Hashem said, I will send to Abraham 3 angels who will look like men so that he can invite them. I will also appear to Abraham. I want to visit him because he is sick from his Brit Milah. So Hashem himself visited the sick. This is where we get the mitzvah of visiting the sick. Hashem personally came to visit Abraham to teach us how important it is to visit sick people. What does the Talmud say? That visiting the sick lessens their pain by 1/60th, I think it is. Anyway, so we have a story. The importance of Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. One day, Rabbi Akiva's students became seriously ill. All the Chachamim were busy studying and teaching Torah. None of them took off time to visit the sick man. When Rabbi Akiva was told that one of his students was lying sick in bed all by himself, he dropped all his important work his learning, his teaching. I will go visit him, he said. When he entered the man's room, Rabbi Akiva noticed that the floor was full of dust. Sweep up, he commanded his students. When the room was clean, the sick student felt much better. He thanked Rabbi Akiva. The landlady noticed that the famous Rabbi Akiva had come to visit the student staying with her. He must be an important student, she said. She soon brought him a nourishing soup and began to take good care of him. In a short time, the student, who had been closer to death than to life, recuperated. Now you see how great the mitzvah of visiting the sick, Rabbi Akiva taught his students. First of all, if you come to visit a sick person, you see what he needs and you may be able to help him. Further, a visitor who sees a sick man lying in bed, ill, and weak prays, please Hashem, make him better. In this way, he helps the sick person to be healed. A visitor also cheers up the sick person so that he stops thinking about his aches and pains. In a way, the visitor takes away a part of the sickness. So getting back to Abraham serves the angels. They foretell that Sarah will have a son. When Abraham noticed 3 men walking on the road, he was overjoyed. In spite of his painful sore, he got up and ran towards them. Ran towards them. I wouldn't be able to crawl. I'm telling you. Abraham bowed to them. Please don't pass by without entering my tent, he begged. I shall ask someone to bring water so that you can wash the dust of your feet. Then have a little bread, eat, and thank Hashem, and continue on your way. That's because people used to worship the dust of the ground as their ancestors. And that's why Abraham would have them wash their feet to wash any trace of idolatry off of them. The angel agreed. One of them, Raphael, had been sent by Hashem to heal Abraham. As soon as the angel approached Abraham, pains from the Brit Milah disappeared. Abraham ordered his servants to bring water. After you will have washed your feet, he said to the angels, come and rest under my tree. The meal will be ready soon. Why did Abraham ask them to wash their feet? He thought they were Arabs, and Arabs consider dust holy and serve it. Abraham did not want an object of idol worship brought into his home. Therefore, he asked his guests first to get rid of the dust which they served. Our sages explain Abraham's wonderful tree. Abraham had a special tree. It tested every guest. If a person who sat down under it had a pure heart, the tree spread its branches over him and gave him a lovely cooling shade. But if the tree would not spread its branches over a wicked person, anyone whose heart was deeply attached to idol worship, Abraham invited every guest to sit under his tree. If the tree gave its shade to the guest, Abraham knew that he was a good man. He would then speak to him for many hours, and he would not let him leave the tent before convincing him to serve Hashem. Abraham serves his guests. Abraham hurried outside the tent and happily informed Sarah, guests have arrived, quickly bake loaves for a meal. Meanwhile, Abraham ran to slaughter 3 tender calves. Of course, the 3 guests were not likely to eat up the meat, the 3 whole calves. That would be far too much for them. But Abraham did not stint money when it came to serving guests. He wanted each guest to have the most delicious part of the calf, the tongue. He therefore had 3 animals slaughtered to be able to serve each guest a whole tongue. I don't particularly care for tongue. You know, how about you, Rabbi Ancel? Okay. Yeah, because it's hard to tell. Is it tasting me or am I tasting it? Anyway, Bum. Abraham called to his son Ishmael, hurry and prepare meat. We have guests. We always hurry so that we won't have to wait long for a meal. The three angels received a delicious meal. First, cream and milk. Interesting. Later, soft tongue spiced with mustard was served. One of the angels foretells that, and again, okay, so this is this whole thing of meat and milk. Okay, so remember, these things have to be slaughtered, and they have to be cooked, and it takes the time to cook, so he serves them the cream first as an appetizer, or to just kind of take the edge off of their hunger while the rest of the meal is actually being cooked, so that we know that it was at least 3 hours from the time that they finished the milk and before they actually had the meat. So one of the angels foretells that Sarah will have a son. After the angel had ended their meal, of course they didn't eat, they were actually just pretending to eat. They asked Abraham, "Where is Sarah?" "She is in the tent," replied Abraham. Sarah was a modest woman. She did not come out and show herself before the strangers, but stayed inside the tent. One of the angels announced, "I have a message for Sarah. Next year at this time, Sarah will have a son. I will be back to celebrate with you and your new son's Brit Milah." Sarah heard the message inside the tent. She did not know that the man who spoke was an angel. He looked like an ordinary traveler. She laughed inwardly. "Abraham and I are old." That's actually not what it says in the Torah. She says, "He's old. My husband is old. The old goat. Not me." "Abraham and I are old people," she thought. "How could we still have children?" Hashem was angry with Sarah for having laughed. Hashem told Abraham, "Is there any miracle too hard for Hashem to perform? Next year, at Pesach time, Sarah will have a son." The three angels arose. One of them returned to heaven, and the two others set off on foot toward the city of Sodom. Okay, because an angel only, basically their name, they take their name from their mission. Once their mission is done, they return, or they get a new name because they have a new mission. Okay, so we have another story. The miracle that occurred when the 72 Jewish elders translated the Torah into Greek. The Egyptian king, Ptolemy II, wanted to have in his library a book of the Torah in his own language, Greek, so that he could understand it. He called 72 Jewish sages and commanded, "I order you to translate the Torah to me from Hebrew into Greek." He locked each sage in a separate chamber to make sure that none would copy from the others. Now there are many Pesukim sentences in the Torah which we understand only because we have the explanation of our sages. For example, when Hashem wanted to create Adam, Hashem said, "Let us make man." To whom was Hashem talking when he said, let us? The answer is that Hashem asked the angels whether or not he should create a person. Of course, Hashem knew without asking the angels, but he wanted to teach us people a lesson. Before beginning an important undertaking, we should ask advice from others. That is why Hashem told the angels, "Let us make man." But if an idol worshiper like King Ptolemy would read the words, "Let us make man," he would claim, "You see, even your Torah says that there were many gods who together created Adam, not just one." The sages who translated the Torah into Greek decided that it was better to translate that Hashem had said, "Let me make a man," instead of "let us." They made other changes also. Here are some of them. The Torah says, and God finished all the work of creation on the seventh day. Wasn't the seventh day Shabbat, the day on which God rested? How then does the Torah say that he finished his work on Shabbat? Our answer is that even on Shabbat, God created something, the Sabbath rest. Would King Ptolemy and the non-Jews understand this idea? Probably not. They would say, God worked on the seventh day. So the sages changed the translation. They wrote, and God finished all the work of creation on the sixth day. One of the non-kosher animals in the Torah list in Parshah Shemini is Arnevet, a hare. The kind that jumps around on the ground, not the stuff on your head. Instead of writing the Greek word for hare, the sages wrote the short-footed animal, because King Ptolemy's wife's name happened to sound like the Greek word for hare. They did this because they were afraid that Ptolemy would accuse them of making fun of the queen. In your Torah, my queen is listed as a non-kosher animal. One change the sages made in our Parshah, Vayeira, the Torah says that Hashem was angry at Sarah because she laughed inwardly at the news that she would have a son. The sages were afraid that the non-Jews would ask, why was God angry at Sarah's laugh and not at Abraham's? Abraham also laughed when Hashem told him he would have a son. So they translated, and Sarah laughed in front of her relatives, which would explain why Hashem was angry with her. Even though each sage was in a room all by himself, Hashem put into the mind of each one to make exactly the same changes. This was a miracle. When King Ptolemy received the 72 translations, they were all exactly alike. King Ptolemy was very proud to have the Torah in Greek in his library. But our Chachamim considered the translation an unhappy event. They said, the day when the Torah was translated into Greek was a terrible day, as the day on which the Jews made the golden calf. Idol worshippers soon began to twist the Torah's meaning on purpose. Eventually, they claimed that Torah belonged to them and not the Jews. Okay, so the cruel laws of Sodom. Why was Sodom destroyed? Hashem said, I'm going to destroy the city of Sodom and its neighboring town, Amorah, Admah, Zevirim, and Zoar. They are all full of wicked people. The cities of Sodom and the other towns were proud and selfish. Their cruel laws showed what wicked, proud, and selfish people they were. Here are some of their laws. It is forbidden to give food to any poor person. The Sodomim had this mean custom. When a poor man came to Sodom, each citizen used to give him a coin on which the owner's name was engraved. The poor man happily took the coins, but no one would sell him food for these coins. And so the poor man would die from hunger. Then everyone would take his coin back. This was the only charity that the laws of Sodom allowed. Another law, no one may invite a stranger into his home. Any stranger who passes through Sodom will be abused and robbed. The people of Sodom were happy with these evil laws. They said, we want to keep our money. If we invite guests or feed the poor, we will be losing our money. Once, two Sodomite girls came to a well to draw water. Why are you so pale? One asked the other. The other whispered so quietly that no one else could hear her. We have no food in our house. We will all die. When her friend heard this, she took pity on her. She ran home and filled her pitcher with flour. They exchanged pitchers so that her friend got a jar of flour and she took home a pitcher of water. But someone observed them. He told the judges of Sodom about the girl's kind act. And what do you think they did? They killed the merciful girl because she had broken the laws of Sodom. The people of Sodom were used to rob the wealthy people among them by doing the following. They would lead the rich person to a shaky wall. Everyone came and pushed the wall onto him, so that he was buried under it and died. Afterwards, they divided up his money. If one man hit another and made him bleed, the judges ruled that the wounded person should pay a doctor's fee to the attacker for providing the service called bloodletting that doctors used to provide. So, Abraham prays for Sodom. Hashem said to Abraham, the souls of the poor people who died from hunger in Sodom and the people who were robbed cry out to me that I should punish the wicked city. I will come down with my angels to see whether or not the people of Sodom deserve to be destroyed. This is where we get some of the first laws for a judge. Abraham had pity on all, which is basically a judge has to investigate the charges personally. Abraham had pity on all people. He hoped that he would be able to save even the wicked people. He prayed, You, Hashem, are the judge of the whole world. If you destroy the people of Sodom, everyone will claim Hashem is a God who kills people. Please don't be so strict with your judgment. There are certainly some good people in Sodom too. Will you destroy them together with the wicked ones? Hashem replied, All the people of Sodom and the other 4 towns are wicked. Abraham asked, Perhaps there are just 50 Tzaddikim among them? Can you, Hashem, not forgive all the people in Sodom because of the righteousness of the 50 good ones who live there? Hashem answered, If there would be 50 Tzaddikim, I would save all the people of Sodom and of the other 4 cities for their sake, but there aren't. Abraham asked, But perhaps there are 45 good people. Wouldn't they be enough to save everyone? Hashem answered, They would, but there aren't 45 righteous people either. Abraham asked, Then perhaps there are 40 Tzaddikim? Hashem replied, There aren't even 40 good people in Sodom and the other cities. Abraham did not give up. He continued to pray that Hashem should save the wicked cities because of some Tzaddikim who live among them. Finally, he heard from Hashem that there were not even 10 good people in Sodom and its neighboring cities. Abraham then stopped davening because he could see that Hashem is a fair judge. He is destroying these cities because all the cities' citizens are wicked. The angel whom Hashem had sent out to destroy Sodom and to save Lot were waiting to hear whether or not Abraham would be able to save Sodom with his prayers. When Abraham had finished trying, they traveled on to destroy the evil cities. So Lot invites the angel to his home. At evening time, 2 angels arrived in Sodom. They looked like men. Lot noticed them in the street. He begged them, Sleep in my home, come to my house secretly by a winding path, because if the people here find out that I have guests, they will kill me. Don't stay in the street overnight. Let us stay in the streets, answered the angels. It is too dangerous for you to invite us in. But Lot pressed them. He learned from Abraham to be hospitable to guests. Finally, the angels agreed to come to Lot's home. Lot baked matzot for his guests, and then he said to his wife, Please give our guests some salt to spice their food. Lot's wife was very angry that her husband had invited guests. She thought, It is enough that he gives them food. They don't need salt to make it tasty. They can manage without salt. Lot's wife wanted to let her neighbors know that Lot had invited guests, but she was afraid of her husband, so she used the salt as an excuse. She said to Lot, "Let me go and borrow some salt." She went to one neighbor after another and told them, "We have guests. Will you lend me some salt to put on their food?" That was just what the people of Sodom needed to hear. All of them hurried to Lot's house and surrounded it from all sides. "Let us have your guests, Lot," they shouted. "We want to do to them what we do to all strangers." Lot stepped outside the house. "Please, my brothers," he begged the people, "don't do evil to my guests. I will hand you out my 2 unmarried daughters instead." "No, we want your guests." The Sodomim shouted back, "If you won't give them to us, we will break down the door and enter your house by force." The angels brought Lot into the house and shut the door behind him. Then they struck the people around the house with blindness. Suddenly, the people of Sodom could not find the door anymore. Yet, they did not give up their search. They were so wicked that they continued looking for the door even though they were blind. They did not give up until they collapsed from exhaustion. So Hashem destroys Sodom. The angel revealed to Lot, "Hashem will soon destroy the wicked city. Take your family and flee." Lot began to collect his money and possessions and to take with him. The angels warned, "There is no time for that. If you delay, you will die too." But Lot did not want to leave his possessions behind. When the angels saw that he was delaying, they took him, his wife, and his 2 unmarried daughters by the hand and hurried them out of the city. The angels warned, "Don't stand still. Keep walking, and never look behind you." Why weren't Lot and his family allowed to look back? Lot was such a tzaddik, was not such a tzaddik, that we know, and that he deserved to be saved. Hashem saved him and his family only in Abraham's zechut, his merit. Since Lot and his family deserved to be punished, they were not allowed to see the punishment of the others. As soon as Lot and his family were out of the city, rain began to fall from heaven. As the rain reached Sodom and its neighboring cities, it turned into tar and fire. The fire destroyed everything. None of the people could escape. When they began to run, their feet became stuck in the tar. Lot's wife was curious to see what had become of her home, and she turned around. Immediately, she became a pillar of salt. Would you care to guess what Hashem turned? No. Guess why Hashem turned her into salt? Right. This was the punishment she deserved for her meanness when she pretended to borrow salt for her guest. If you travel south of Eretz Israel, you will still see the region where Sodom was destroyed. No plants grow there. The water of the Dead Sea, the Yom Hamelach, is so full of salt that you cannot sink in it. And our Chachamim established special berachot, blessings, that you say when you see the pillar of salt that was Lot's wife. The people of Sodom were such rashim, evil, that they did not have to share. They did not have a share in Olam Haba. Nor will Hashem bring them back to life as Techat Hamashim. So, Abimelech, the king of Philistine, takes Sarah to his palace. After Sodom was destroyed, Abraham decided to move from that neighborhood. He thought, there will be no more travelers to whom I can give meals in my tent and whom I can teach. Abraham and Sarah therefore traveled to the land of the Philistine. Even though Philistine were not as bad as the Egyptians, Abraham warned Sarah, "It is better if we tell everyone that we are brother and sister." King Avimelech, Asher, are you still there? Maybe not. Okay. King Abimelech heard about Sarah. He commanded his soldiers to bring her to his palace. Sarah prayed to Hashem to send an angel to protect her. Hashem brought a plague on King Abimelech and his household. That night, Hashem appeared to King Abimelech in a dream and warned him, "I will punish you with death because you took Sarah to your palace. She is a married woman." Abimelech defended himself. What did I do wrong? I am a Zadik. Both Abraham and Sarah told me that they were brother and sister. If you punish me with death, Abraham deserves to die also. It is his fault. Hashem rebuked Abimelech. It is true that you did not know Sarah was married. However, you had no right to take her by force to your palace. That is kidnapping, and you deserve death for it. Return her to her husband, or else you will die. King Abimelech returned Sarah to Abraham. He asked, "Did you know that we are nice, well-behaved people in this country? Why, instead of telling me the truth, did you pretend that Sarah was your sister?" Abraham replied, "The people in your country may act like nice people, but I saw that they are not afraid of God. People who do not fear Hashem may kill me in order to take my wife." King Abimelech gave Abraham expensive presents to calm him. Abraham prayed to God, heal Abimelech and his household from the plague. Hashem accepted Abraham's tefillah and healed Abimelech. Abraham is hospitable to all. Abraham moved to Beersheba in the south of Eretz Israel, and there he planted a beautiful orchard. It was full of delicious fruits such as figs, grapes, and pomegranates. When travelers came by, Abraham invited them to sit down. He asked each one, "What do you want to eat?" Each traveler asked for the food he wanted. Abraham served each guest, but charged no money for the food and the service. In the rainy season, Abraham provided a hotel where guests could stay free of charge. When the guests had eaten and drunk, Abraham told him, "Now say a blessing of thanks." "What shall I say?" the guest asked. Abraham taught him to say, "Blessed be Hashem, the God of the world, whose food we ate." In this way, Abraham made the name of Hashem famous in the world. Thousands and thousands of people began to believe in Hashem and pray to him. So Yitzhak's birth and banquet, which Abraham made when Yitzhak was weaned. On Pesach, a year after the angels had visited Abraham's tent, Sarah gave birth to a boy. Sarah was 90 years old, and Abraham was 100 years old when their baby came into the world. It was a great miracle that they had a son in their old age. Abraham and Sarah, all the people who hear that we had a son will be happy. They called their son Yitzhak. When Yitzhak was 8 days old, Abraham performed Brit Milah on him. Sarah nursed Yitzhak until he was 2 years old. When she stopped nursing him, Abraham made a feast. Some people claimed Abraham and Sarah never had a baby. They are too old. They must have taken a strange baby into their home and then told everyone that it was their own baby. Abraham instructed Sarah, "Nurse the babies of all the women who come to the feast. They will then see that Hashem turned you into a young woman, and Yitzhak is our own child." And actually made him look exactly like Abraham, so there would be no question about it. Sarah nursed all the babies and were brought to her. Now everyone believed that Hashem had performed a wonderful miracle for Abraham and Sarah. Abraham sends away Ishmael and Hagar. Little Yitzhak grew up together with his older half-brother Ishmael, Hagar's son. Yitzhak listened to whatever Abraham taught him, but Ishmael made fun of what Abraham taught him. He brought idols to the house and served them. Abraham did not see this, but Sarah did. One day Sarah observed a fight between Ishmael and Yitzhak. Ishmael boasted, "I am the firstborn. I will get double portion of Abraham's possessions." Yitzhak replied, "But I am Sarah's son. I deserve to inherit all that he has." Ishmael and Yitzhak ran to the field together. Ishmael drew out his bow and arrow and shot arrows at Yitzhak. When Sarah rebuked him, he said, "I was just playing." Sarah told Abraham, "It is not good for Yitzhak to stay together with Ishmael. Ishmael did not act like your son. He acts like the son of the Egyptian woman. His mother Hagar must have taught him to serve idols. Send Ishmael away together with his mother Hagar." Abraham was very disturbed. Who would watch over Ishmael? Away from Abraham's home. Perhaps Ishmael would become even worse, far from Abraham. But Hashem said to Abraham, "Sarah is right. Listen to whatever she tells you. Send Hagar and Ishmael away. Only Yitzhak will become the forefather of a holy nation, but not Ishmael. Do not worry about Ishmael. I will protect him even far from your home." Early the next morning, Abraham did as Hashem had commanded. He gave Hagar bread and a flask of water and put Ishmael on her shoulders because Ishmael was sick with fever. Abraham sent them both away. Hagar and Ishmael wandered in the desert. The fever burned in Ishmael's body, and he was so thirsty he soon drank up all the water his mother had. Hagar was afraid that her son would die of thirst because no water was left in her flask. She put him under one of the bushes that grew in the desert and sat down a distance from him and began to cry. Hagar davened to Hashem, and so did the sick Ishmael. Hashem accepted the tefillah of the sick boy, which teaches us that God answers the prayer of the sick first, before the prayers of those who pray for them. So the sick person must always pray for themselves. An angel called from heaven, "Hagar, do not be afraid. Hashem is protecting your son. He will live. He will become the forefather of a big nation." Suddenly Hagar saw a well in front of her in the middle of the desert. It had appeared by a miracle. They drank, and Hagar filled the flask. Hagar and Ishmael settled in the wilderness of Paran. Ishmael became an archer. So Abraham and Abimelech make a treaty. You remember how Hashem helped Abraham in the land of the Philistine. When King Abimelech kidnapped Sarah, Hashem struck Abimelech and his household with a plague. After Abraham and Sarah left the land of the Philistine, Abimelech heard more amazing things about Abraham. One of them was that he had won a war against 4 mighty kings. Abimelech also knew that Abraham and Sarah had a baby when they were already very old. Abimelech was so impressed that he told his general, Pichol, "I see clearly that God is with Abraham. Let us go and make a peace treaty with him." Abimelech and Pichol, his general, traveled to the place where Abraham lived. Abimelech said to Abraham, "I have heard that God promised to give you the whole land of Canaan. Now swear to me that when this happens, that you will not cause us Philistim out of our land. In case God will give the land to your son or grandson, swear to me that neither your son nor your grandson will drive us away from our land. Do us this favor, since we treated you so well when you stayed among us." Abraham answered, I agreed to swear concerning what you asked. But first let me voice a complaint against you. My servants dug a well. Along came your men and claimed it was theirs. They took it away and will not let us use it. I didn't know anything about this, Avimelech defended himself. How can I be sure to whom the well really belongs? I will tell you how, said Avimelech. Let's make this test. Your servants will lead one of your flock of sheep to the well. If the water will rise as soon as they approach it with the animals, then the well belongs to you. I will also ask my servants to bring my sheep to the well. If the water rises for my servants, I am the true owner. Avimelech agreed. And for whom do you think the water rose? Only when Abraham's servants approached the well, the water piled up, and Hashem performed this miracle to prove that the well really belonged to Abraham. Then Abraham and Avimelech made a treaty of friendship. They swore not to harm each other, and neither would their son or grandson hurt one another. Abraham gave Avimelech 7 sheep to remind him that his servants of the miracle of the well. Avimelech's men no longer claimed that they were the well's owner. The place where Avimelech and Abraham made the treaty became known as Be'er-Sheva, the well of 7 sheep. Hashem was angry with Abraham for making a treaty with Avimelech. Really, Hashem had promised to give Abraham the land of the Philistim. It was part of Eretz Canaan. Okay. Where was the land of Philistim? Gaza. It was part of Eretz Canaan. But now Abraham's children would not be allowed to conquer the land of the Philistim until after Abimelech's grandson would die. Because Hashem was angry with Abraham, he decided to give him a hard test. And this was one of the reasons why he asked Abraham to offer up his son as Korban on Har HaMoriah. The Midrash tells us an angel of Hashem asked Hashem to test Abraham. Someone who has a simcha and invites many guests to a meal on a happy occasion should make sure not to forget the poor people. If he spends all his money on arrangements for himself and his friends, ignoring the poor and accusing an angel, if that's Ancel, my phone is upstairs. So anyway, if he spends all his money on arrangements for himself and his friends, ignoring the poor, and accusing angel in heaven, cast an evil eye on him and ask Hashem to send him suffering. See what happened to Abraham, the most hospitable of men, whom did so much kindness to all people. On the day Sarah stopped nursing Yitzhak, Abraham made a splendid feast. All the famous people of the land of Canaan were invited. An accusing angel saw no poor people had been invited to the feast. The angel disguised himself as a poor man and stood at the entrance of the tent. No one paid attention to him. Abraham was busy serving his guests. Sarah was in the innermost room of the tent nursing the babies of the women. No one took notice of the beggar. The accusing angel flew straight up to Hashem. "You call Abraham your friend?" he complained to Hashem. "But he made a meal without giving a share to the poor. Neither did he offer you even the smallest sacrifice." Hashem answered, "No one in the world is as generous as Abraham." But the angel continued to speak against Abraham. Hashem decided, "I will test Abraham. I will command him to bring his own son as a sacrifice." At the same time, it was also decreed in heaven that Sarah should die from grief over Yitzhak, because Abraham and Sarah had not invited poor people to their banquet. So now we come to the Kedah. Abraham is ready to sacrifice his son on Har HaMoriah, Mount Moriah. Hashem called Abraham. I am ready for whatever you ask me, replied Abraham. Take your son Yitzhak, Hashem says, and go to the land of Moriah. There you are to bring him up as a sacrifice on one of the mountains that I will show you. Can you even imagine how shocked Abraham must have been? Every father loves his child. Abraham was especially attached to Yitzhak because he had waited for a son until the age of 100 years, and he had no other son to take Yitzhak's place. Abraham also remembered God's promise that Yitzhak would have many descendants as the stars of the heaven. Now that promise would not come true. But Abraham asked Hashem no questions. He thought, whatever Hashem asks of me, I will do without arguing. Abraham did not know how to tell Sarah that Hashem wanted Yitzhak to be sacrificed. She would be so sad it would break her heart. He therefore told Sarah, our son Yitzhak has grown up. It is time for him to learn Torah in yeshiva. I will take him tomorrow to Shem's yeshiva. Do as you say, replied Sarah. But please, and again, Yitzhak, a lot of people think he was a little boy. He was in his 30s at this point. Do as you say, replied Sarah, but please don't keep him there too long because I cannot bear the separation. Guard him well on the way. Sarah prepared beautiful clothes for Yitzhak from the robes which King Avimelech had given her. She also cooked food for the trip. Early the next morning, Abraham himself saddled his donkey. He would not let one of his servants do this job because he loved Hashem's mitzvah so much that he wanted to do it all by himself. He commanded his son Yishmael, who was then on a visit to Abraham's house with his servant Eliezer, accompany us. Abraham split wood to have it ready for the sacrifice and loaded it on the donkey. He called Yitzhak, and they set out together. During the journey, Satan, the angel who tries to persuade people not to obey Hashem, appeared to Abraham and to Yitzhak. First, Satan showed himself to Abraham as an old man. He talked to Abraham for a while till Abraham told him where he was going and why. Then he asked, aren't you a fool for going to slaughter a son who was born to you in your old age? It cannot be that Hashem told you this. He would not give you such a cruel command. But Abraham realized that these were Satan's ideas and arguments. Leave me alone, he shouted at him, and the angel disappeared. Satan then appeared to Yitzhak as a young, beautiful boy. Do you know where your old foolish father is taking you? He asked him. To slaughter you. You will die young. Father, Yitzhak called to Abraham, did you hear what that boy is telling me? Beware of him, Abraham warned Yitzhak. Don't listen to him. He is Satan, an angel of evil, who wants us to ignore Hashem's mitzvah. Abraham shouted at Satan again, and he left. Satan tried a different way. He turned into a large river. It blocked Abraham and Yitzhak's way. Abraham and Yitzhak stepped into it until it reached their necks, and they became afraid. Then Abraham realized that all this was a test for them. There never was a river here. He told Yitzhak, it is Satan's doing. Hashem, take Satan away from us, Abraham prayed. We are on our way to fulfill your command. Satan left, and the river turned back into dry land. After traveling 3 days, Abraham saw the mountain where the cloud of the Shekinah rested, so he knew on which mountain to bring his son. Abraham told Ishmael and Eliezer, stay at the foot of the mountain. I, Yitzhak, will go up, bow to Hashem, and return to you. Abraham, without knowing it, had spoken the truth. Both he and Yitzhak really would return from the mountain. Maybe Abraham just had that much faith. God made that promise. God's going to keep that promise. He's going to stop me. Abraham put the firewood on Yitzhak's back, and together they climbed the mountain. Yitzhak wondered. There was a knife and fire, but no animal for the sacrifice. He had suspected the truth before, but now he was almost certain. Father, Yitzhak asked, trembling, I see fire and the wood, but where's the animal for the sacrifice? Since you asked me, replied Abraham, I will tell you. Hashem chose you as a sacrifice, my son. I will let myself be slaughtered willingly, Yitzhak said without hesitation, but it pains me to think of mother's grief when she will hear about my death. When they arrived at the place, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then Abraham put Yitzhak on top of the altar of wood. Yitzhak asked him to tie his hands and feet together so that he wouldn't push or kick and spoil the sacrifice. Tears dropped from Abraham's eyes, and he stretched out his hand to the knife to slaughter his son. But in his heart, he was happy that he was obeying Hashem. In heaven, Hashem commanded the angel Michael, quickly tell Abraham to stop. Abraham, Abraham, the angel Michael called, don't slaughter your son. Abraham felt suddenly disappointed. Did I come here in vain and set up an altar and prepare a sacrifice for nothing? He asked. Let me cut a tiny cut on him with my knife to show that I was ready to sacrifice him. Don't hurt him at all, commanded the angel. Abraham prayed to Hashem. Why then did you order me to offer up my son? Hashem replied, I merely commanded, bring him up to Har Moriah because I wanted to test whether you would obey me. You passed the test. I have shown the Satan that all people in the world and all the people in the world what a tzaddik you are. Abraham had an empty feeling. He had come all the way to bring a sacrifice, and suddenly he had no sacrifice to bring to Hashem. So Hashem made a ram appear a short distance away from Abraham. Its horns were entangled in a bush. Abraham took it and sacrificed it on the altar. He prayed to Hashem, please Hashem, accept this sacrifice as if I had sacrificed my son. Yitzhak was never allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, what would become Eretz Israel, because he had been a korban. He was holy. He was not allowed to leave the land. Abraham prophesied, on the mountain where I tied up Yitzhak, the Beit HaMikdash will be built one day. Here the Shekinah will be seen by the Jewish people. Because I was willing to sacrifice Yitzhak, Hashem will accept the tefillot on sacrifices of Bnei Yisrael. Hashem always remembered the great zechut merit, the Akedat Yitzhak. It is almost unbelievable that a man who had an only son in his old age, who was promised by Hashem many times that he would have very many children from this son, should be ready to slaughter him to Hashem without complaint or question, especially on Rosh Hashanah, the day when Hashem judges us. We mention in our tefillat Hashem, because of the Akedat Yitzhak, the binding of Yitzhak on the altar, judge all Jews mercifully. Just as Abraham bound his son on the altar and overcame his mercy in order to fulfill your will, so you, Hashem, be merciful towards us even if we angered you. Why do we blow the shofar, ram's horn, on Rosh Hashanah? So that Hashem should have mercy on us in the zechut of that Abraham was willing to slaughter his son. And that concludes the My Little Midrash Says for Parshah Vayeira. Okay, let me get my bookmark in here. And close the little midrash. Set that off to the side for now. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. Rabbi Ancel, so I think we actually lost him somewhere along the line. Let me take a quick look here and see if, yeah. Well, it was good to have him here while he was here. Well, thank everybody for being here this evening. Don't forget that Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service. On Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Eastern is Shachrit and Musaf. And then Monday is Zeta's Story Corner. Because even with all the craziness, darkness in the world, we do need a break. And Zeta is a great storyteller and just give us a little bit of rest, a little respite from what's going on in the world for an hour. Okay, and then Tuesday, back here for the Rabbis Discuss, whatever it is the rabbis are going to discuss. And then right back here on Wednesday for the Torah study, which will be Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. Okay, so until the next time, we are going to simply say, Laila Tov.